Welcome. Today, we are looking at trade. This is a key topic in your commerce exams for SS1. Pay close attention. Let us begin. First, let me explain the meaning of trade. Trade is the buying and selling of goods and services. It is the exchange of goods and services for money. Trade is the central activity in commerce. Without trade, commerce would not exist. Trade helps to move goods from where they are produced to where they are consumed. It creates possession utility. When you buy a product, ownership transfers from the seller to you. That is possession utility. Trade is essential for the economy. It allows people to specialize in producing what they are good at. Then they trade for what they need. Without trade, people would have to produce everything they need themselves. That would be inefficient and time-consuming. Trade is classified into two main types: home trade and foreign trade. Home trade takes place within the borders of a country. It is also called domestic trade or internal trade. Foreign trade takes place between two or more countries. It is also called international trade or external trade. Both types of trade are important. Home trade supports the local economy. Foreign trade brings in foreign exchange and allows countries to access goods they cannot produce themselves. Now, let me explain home trade. Home trade is the buying and selling of goods and services within a country. The buyer and seller live in the same country. They use the same currency. They follow the same laws. Home trade is divided into two types: wholesale trade and retail trade. Wholesale trade involves buying goods in large quantities from producers and selling them in smaller quantities to retailers. Wholesalers are intermediaries. They buy directly from manufacturers. They store goods in warehouses. They break bulk into smaller units. They sell to retailers. Wholesalers do not usually sell to final consumers. They sell to businesses. Retail trade involves selling goods in small quantities directly to final consumers. Retailers are the last link in the distribution chain. They buy from wholesalers or directly from manufacturers. They sell to consumers. Retailers are located close to where consumers live. They offer convenience. They provide after-sales service. They give advice to customers. They also offer credit to trusted customers. Retailers are the most visible part of the trade sector. Examples of retailers include supermarkets, corner shops, department stores, and online stores. Now, let me explain the functions of wholesale trade. Wholesalers perform several important functions. First, they buy in bulk. They purchase large quantities from manufacturers. This allows manufacturers to produce in large volumes and enjoy economies of scale. Second, they store goods. Wholesalers keep goods in warehouses. They release them when needed. This creates time utility. Third, they break bulk. They buy in large quantities and sell in smaller quantities. This makes it easier for retailers to buy. Fourth, they transport goods. Wholesalers arrange for the movement of goods from factories to their warehouses and from warehouses to retailers. Fifth, they provide finance. Wholesalers often give credit to retailers. They allow retailers to pay later. Sixth, they bear risk. Wholesalers take ownership of goods. They bear the risk of damage, theft, or price changes. Seventh, they provide market information. Wholesalers inform manufacturers about market trends and consumer preferences. They also inform retailers about new products. Now let me explain the functions of retail trade. Retailers also perform important functions. First, they buy from wholesalers or manufacturers. They purchase in smaller quantities. Second, they break bulk further. They sell in even smaller quantities that consumers can afford. Third, they store goods. Retailers keep stock in their shops. Consumers can buy what they need immediately. Fourth, they provide convenience. Retailers are located in residential areas. Consumers do not have to travel far. Fifth, they offer credit. Some retailers allow trusted customers to buy now and pay later. Sixth, they provide after-sales service. They handle repairs, returns, and warranties. Seventh, they give advice. Retailers help customers choose products. They explain features and benefits. Eighth, they advertise. Retailers promote products through displays, flyers, and local advertising. Now, let me explain foreign trade. Foreign trade is the buying and selling of goods and services between different countries. It is also called international trade. Foreign trade is divided into three types: import trade, export trade, and entrepot trade. Import trade is the purchase of goods from other countries. For example, Nigeria buys cars from Japan. That is import trade. Export trade is the sale of goods to other countries. For example, Nigeria sells crude oil to the United States. That is export trade. Entrepot trade is the importation of goods for the purpose of re-exporting them. The goods are not consumed in the importing country. They are simply stored and then shipped to another country. For example, Singapore imports goods from China and re-exports them to India. That is entrepot trade. Foreign trade is more complex than home trade. It involves additional documents. It requires foreign exchange. It is affected by exchange rates. It is subject to customs duties and tariffs. It also involves risks like currency fluctuations and political instability. Despite these challenges, foreign trade is very important. It allows countries to access goods they cannot produce. It allows them to sell their surplus products. It promotes specialization. It brings in foreign exchange. It creates jobs. It fosters international cooperation. Let me explain the advantages of foreign trade. First, it allows countries to obtain goods they cannot produce. For example, Nigeria cannot produce snow, but Nigerians can buy snow-related equipment from other countries. Second, it allows countries to sell their surplus products. Nigeria produces more crude oil than it consumes. It sells the surplus to other countries. Third, it promotes specialization. Countries can focus on producing what they are best at. Fourth, it encourages competition. Foreign goods compete with local goods. This forces local producers to improve quality and lower prices. Fifth, it brings in foreign exchange. Export earnings can be used to pay for imports. Sixth, it creates employment. Many jobs depend on foreign trade. Shipping, freight forwarding, customs brokerage, and international banking all rely on foreign trade. Seventh, it fosters international understanding. Trade brings people from different countries together. It promotes peace and cooperation. Let me also explain the disadvantages of foreign trade. First, it can lead to overdependence. A country may become too dependent on imports for essential goods. If supplies are cut off, the country will suffer. Second, it can harm local industries. Cheap imports can make local products uncompetitive. Local factories may close. Workers may lose their jobs. Third, it can lead to the importation of harmful goods. Some countries export goods that are banned in their own countries. Fourth, it can lead to the exploitation of developing countries. Rich countries may pay low prices for raw materials and sell finished goods at high prices. Fifth, it can lead to cultural imperialism. Foreign products may displace local culture and traditions. Now let me explain the difference between home trade and foreign trade. Home trade takes place within a country. Foreign trade takes place between countries. Home trade uses the local currency. Foreign trade uses foreign currencies. Home trade has fewer regulations. Foreign trade has many regulations, including tariffs, quotas, and exchange controls. Home trade involves lower risks. Foreign trade involves higher risks, including currency fluctuations, political instability, and longer distances. Home trade requires less documentation. Foreign trade requires many documents, including bills of lading, letters of credit, and certificates of origin. Home trade is simpler. Foreign trade is more complex. A common exam question asks you to define trade and classify it into its types. Here is a sample answer. Trade is the buying and selling of goods and services. It is classified into home trade and foreign trade. Home trade takes place within a country. It is divided into wholesale trade and retail trade. Foreign trade takes place between countries. It is divided into import trade, export trade, and entrepot trade. Import trade is buying from other countries. Export trade is selling to other countries. Entrepot trade is importing for re-export. Another exam question asks you to explain the functions of a wholesaler. Here is your answer. Wholesalers buy in bulk from manufacturers. They store goods in warehouses. They break bulk into smaller quantities. They transport goods to retailers. They provide finance through credit. They bear risks of damage, theft, and price changes. They provide market information to manufacturers and retailers. These functions make it easier for goods to flow from producers to consumers. Another exam question asks you to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of foreign trade. Here is your answer. The advantages of foreign trade include access to goods not produced locally, sale of surplus products, promotion of specialization, competition, foreign exchange earnings, employment creation, and international understanding. The disadvantages include overdependence, harm to local industries, importation of harmful goods, exploitation of developing countries, and cultural imperialism. Let me give you a quick summary. Trade is the buying and selling of goods and services. It is classified into home trade and foreign trade. Home trade is divided into wholesale and retail trade. Wholesalers buy in bulk and sell to retailers. Retailers sell to final consumers. Foreign trade is divided into import, export, and entrepot trade. Foreign trade has advantages and disadvantages. Keep reviewing, keep practicing. See you in the next topic.